Hi everyone, this is Jean and I'm making this video to explain to you one of the very first things we'll learn about in writing 122, which is introduction to argument. So today we're going to look at the rhetorical situation and Aristotle's appeals. So a couple of our learning objectives for this week. When you are done with this module, you will be able to explain the 5 elements of the rhetorical situation, and you will be able to discuss how an author uses Aristotle's appeals to build an argument. So these are some basic building blocks that we're learning about here. So why are we learning this? Well, one of the focuses of this class is understanding how argument works. And so I want to give you some basic knowledge in that will help you to understand an argument when we read it in class and to evaluate it, because we're going to be doing that this term as well. And in addition, we will also be creating our own arguments. So a basic understanding of what the rhetorical situation and Aristotle's appeals is necessary if we're going to do these 2 things. So basic definition of the rhetorical situation comes from our textbook, A Guide to Rhetoric, Genre, and Success in First-Year Writing. And you'll find this reading in D12, but the authors Robin Jeffrey and Emily Zickel define the rhetorical situation this way. They write, you can think of the rhetorical situation as the context or set of circumstances out of which a text arises. Anytime someone is trying to make an argument, one is doing so out of a particular context, one that influences and shapes how the argument is made. So the rhetorical situation is really a relationship with a number of factors. And we're going to look at those one by one. So the rhetorical situation starts with a message. So a writer or somebody creates a message. For the purposes of our class, the message will be an argument. So the message is then created by a creator who might be a writer or they might be a speaker. And there may be one person behind it, or there may be a couple of people, might even be a group, but they are the creator of the message. After we look at the creator of the message and learn about them, it's important to understand that the message created by someone is going to be received by someone, and we call that the audience. So that could be just one person. It could be multiple people. In the case of an audio or a video message, because we're going to look at messages that aren't just printed text, that audio or video could be heard or watched by someone at a later time. And so it's important to understand what you can about an audience when you're creating a message. The next element is purpose. So in any writing situation or speaking situation or message creating situation, what does the writer want you to do? What did the writer create this message for? Are they trying to persuade? That's what a lot of the texts that we'll look at in this class will be doing. Are they trying to tell a story, entertain, narrate? Many things you'll read do just that. Is the writer trying to inform? Is the writer trying to sell you something? So all of those are potential purposes that will affect how the audience receives the message, but also how the writer or the creator creates the message. And so the final element in the rhetorical situation is the context. And so this is basically everything going on around the message and the writer and the audience. So there could be historical things. There could be economic factors, societal or sociological factors, psychological or spiritual factors. So those will often influence why a creator creates a message to begin with. Maybe they felt now is the time for this message. Maybe this message will be received better now than at a different time. So again, the rhetorical situation is a relationship among these 5 elements. So the other part of our lesson here today has to do with Aristotle. And of course, Aristotle lived quite a long time ago, and we really don't know what he looked like since we didn't have Instagram, although it would be interesting to see what he would post to Instagram. But Aristotle was a curious fellow, and he liked to understand about a lot of things, but one of his pet interests, you might say, was the art of rhetoric. And he defined rhetoric as using the available means of persuasion. And so he delivered a series of lectures during the 4th century BCE, before the Common Era. And they were collected into a work called The Art of Rhetoric, or sometimes simply Rhetoric. And so you may have actually learned some of these in Writing 121. In fact, as I talk to you about them in a moment, you'll probably recognize something that sounds familiar. So let's dive in. What does Aristotle have to say about how to persuade? Well, Aristotle actually gave us some appeals that we could use when trying to persuade somebody. One of them is something he called logos. He calls this the appeal to logic. This is one I bet sounds very familiar. He understood that people listen to messages that sound like they make sense. And so the appeal or use of logic through facts is one way that you can get somebody around to your point of view or way of thinking. Another appeal that he thought was particularly effective is the appeal to ethos, or the appeal to morality or authority. This usually comes from the speaker of the message, and it comes from their own personal experience or expertise. Sometimes it's even the sense of, this is the right thing to do, and that's why you should do it. So that's why it's authority or morality. Then Aristotle understood that people are humans, that human beings respond many times with emotion. And so he talked about how the appeal to pathos, or the use of the creation of emotion in the audience, sometimes through even creating images, is very effective. Obviously, this is one that's used judiciously, but it can be very effective. So another one that you might not have heard of is the appeal to telos, or purpose. Why are you creating this message? What do you want to do? What do you want someone to do with it once you're done? And so the appeal to telos is, what are you trying to do? What do you want the audience to do? And then finally, the 5th appeal that again may not be as familiar is the appeal to kairos, or kairos is Greek for time, but not the measurable time that chronos is, like chronology. Kairos refers to what's going on, what's the context of the message. So what can I use from, what's going on right now to help make my appeal? So logic, emotion, morality or authority, purpose, and context. These should start to sound familiar because they actually work together. How do the rhetorical situation and Aristotle's appeals work together? Well, let me show you. So as you can see here, this circular object represents the rhetorical situation with the message, the writer, the audience, the purpose, and the context. And then we have logic or logos, pathos, ethos, telos, and kairos. As you can see, Aristotle's 5 appeals and the 5 elements of the rhetorical situation actually go pretty well together. Logos, the appeal to logic, matches with the message because you want a logical message. Ethos matches with the creator of the message because you want to be able to believe them. You want to know that they have some credibility. Audience is likely going to respond with emotion, and so you can draw upon that. There's also going to be a reason for sending the message. That's telos. And then the context, what's going on around the message, that is kairos. And so that's how the rhetorical situation and Aristotle's appeals work together. So what's next? Well, we are going to be using these elements of the rhetorical situation and Aristotle's 5 appeals that really are almost the same thing throughout the term to, again, understand and evaluate other people's arguments and to construct your own. So if you wanted to know more about the rhetorical situation or Aristotle's appeals, please definitely check out my YouTube channel here, which has individual videos on many of the elements, as well as some explanatory videos on how it all works together. And thank you for watching.